Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. This is your host, Helen Edwards, upcoming author of the book, Nothing Sexier Than Freedom. And this is the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, Episode 7. Today, I have my amazing friend who I want to introduce to everybody because we have an exciting podcast for you. Her name is Erin Smith.
Hi. Oh my gosh, Helen, thank you so much for having me. I've been very excited to be on your podcast. I'm really excited. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Erin Smith. I'm the founder of Imprinted Legacy and now a PhD student at the University of Otago. And this kind of the journey of how everything kind of came to be and how Helen and I met is my understanding of kind of what we'll be chit-chatting about today.
Yes, and how we met is, ta-da, the Desire Map. So we're going to actually give our reviews on it. I'll give mine first. So the Desire Map was written by Danielle Laporte. And in my two last podcasts with my friend Jordan, yoga instructor, that is how we met. So me, Erin, and Jordan actually all met at this weekend sort of workshop on how to figure out your core values or your core feelings or desires. And you came up with like 4 or 5 words, and then those were your core feelings. And that's basically what you strive to feel in any pursuit that you went for. So my review of the Desire Map is that it's amazing. I actually wrote my core feelings on the back of my new book that's coming out. So Erin, what do you think about it?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read your book for one. I've been counting down like the time till I can read your book and own it and have you sign it, by the way. Gosh, the Desire Map, that was such an intense weekend to get in touch with your feelings and the things that kind of hold you back from feeling how you want to feel. And it was like peeling down the layers for how you want to feel throughout life's choices or anything you want to do. But my narrowed it down to 3 words. That was tough. I remember because you and I were in the same group, like little small groups. And oh gosh, it was so tough. And then come to realize that this is how I want to feel and not feel guilty to want to feel this way. Like, what does it mean to want to feel? So my words were serenity, free, and ethereal. But free was kind of hard to figure out, well, what does free mean? Free from what? What are the things that stand in the way from that? And it's usually yourself. In my situation, it was myself, limiting myself and stopping myself from doing things that I want to do. But yeah, that weekend was amazing, and it changed everything, just how I think about things. Or it's uncomfortable sometimes to get that in touch with your emotions. But the moment you give yourself permission to, that's how it was for me. I gave myself permission to feel how I wanted to feel and to recognize, oh, this is a feeling that this is what I want to have. And that's a good thing. Or that's not a feeling I want to have. So I need to stop that. So yeah, it was such a great weekend. I love that Alicia put it together. I hope she does another one.
Yeah, I'm really hoping to do a podcast with her. Actually, can you tell us what the 3rd word was and what that means for those like me don't know what it means?
Yeah. Okay. So I had free, serenity, and ethereal. Ethereal was a different one because ethereal, usually people think of it being as angelic, but mine was ethereal, meaning that I just wanted to kind of be that bright light in other people's lives. My parents have always, brought me up in the sense of if you borrow someone's car or whatever it is, you always give it back to them, anything better than how you left it. You know what I mean? And then that's how I kind of feel about people. I always want to leave people better than the way I left them, whatever moment that is, right? And so ethereal was more spreading my message, or not even just my message, but I'll get into all that nerdy stuff in a little bit. But spreading just the good that I want to do in this world, being able to shine that out. And that's what ethereal meant. So it wasn't anything angelic, but it was more of just giving back and doing good and just being being that, the message being an ethereal kind of thing. If that makes sense, it might not be. It's been a while since I've actually had to talk about it to others, so to explain it out loud is a bit different. But that's what that was. Serenity, I was going through a lot of change at once in that time of my life when you met me. Everything was feeling very rocky and unstable. I was unsure of so much, but I just wanted to feel serene about everything, all my choices, what I was doing on my journey. And so that's where that came from. The free was for, I just felt there was a big part of me still tying myself down to my beliefs that were starting to change, you know, and so just being free from judging myself and what I was wanting to do and how I want to live my life, and being okay, you know, not worried if people are judging, because as long as I'm not judging myself, you know, that was really where the free kind of came in. So I'm trying to remember. Yeah, that was, I'm trying to remember what your words were.
Oh, I have them right here. Actually, I got them. I was working on my book earlier. I got my proof. I'm working on it, so it's not completed yet. My words were boundless, alive, sexy, and badass. And that was 4 years ago. And I've been to a lot of workshops. I mean, Tony Robbins, actually a few of his, and other workshops, money workshops, just tons of workshops throughout the last 12 years of my life on this journey of like self-help and everything. And Elisa's workshop for the Desire Map was so affordable, so simple, and it made the biggest impact on my life, hands down, until this day. And I've been to workshops since then, and it's not like none of the rest have not made an impact, but hers has made the biggest impact in my life. And the Desire Map has made, I guess, you know, the combination of the two have made the biggest impact. And I've become really good friends with you and Jordan, and I feel really thankful that we all met that day, because it was really intense, like you said. So speaking about your words and the journey, I want to talk about manifestation, because you have totally grown since then. I mean, okay, share your journey. First of all, you just moved to New Zealand, right?
Yep. It was exciting and scary. That was intense. But yeah, when you and I met, gosh, 4 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, 4 years. But I remember when we all first met, everyone was kind of not shy, but just guarded. You know, like, how much do I want to open up to these strangers? And what do I want to say? There's things that you try to block from yourself, and now I'm having to share with other people, you know, and get real vulnerable. But so at that time, my husband and I just moved to Arizona. A lot of it was for him to finish his education, and I was starting my next chapter of what it was that I really wanted to share with the world. So I created a business, Imprinted Legacy, and a lot of that is sharing the field of the science. I'll try not to get too caught in the weeds. Let me know if I do. But it's called Developmental Origins of Health and Disease. So it's looking at, during our initial stages of development in the womb, what are the environmental triggers that make ourselves more vulnerable to chronic health conditions when we get older. So it's how is your body developed to function? And my approach was, okay, if we understand how our body is developing to survive in the world, then that's where we work towards preventing disease later. So that was kind of the angle. I was fascinated by it. I felt the research wasn't getting out there, and it needed to be. In my opinion, it was cutting edge. Like, this can change so much for so many generations. So I had to share it. So I started Imprinted Legacy, and I was very at the beginning figuring out how to do a website and what's the angle, and, you know, just there was so much I wanted to share. I almost didn't know how to share it. And it was scary, and it was creating something out of the blue. You know, I didn't have anybody who had created something like that with that field. This field was so new. It still is new, but you're kind of breaking through that barrier because I have my undergrad, master's courses, but it was, what authority did I have except for teaching myself and reading the articles, research articles on what was going on. So at that point, we moved to Arizona, didn't know anybody, trying to figure out what the heck I was doing, and so it was a bit tough. Went to the Desire Map and got real vulnerable and uncomfortable in a good way, and figured out what is it that I really, really want to feel like in this journey called life. What are the thoughts that are blocking me from feeling how I want to feel? So free, being able to create my business, send out a message that I want, and own that, own it completely. Not judging myself about things, or not judging myself for not having all the answers all the time. I know that seems so natural, you're only human, but there's a part of you when there's something that means so much to you, you want to know it all, and you want to help as much as you can. So there was all that I had to break through. So after that intense weekend, realizing how I wanted to feel, what I wanted to do, that really helped me make decisions of not just with my business, but everyday life. Are these people that I meet, how do I want to have this interaction with this person? How does that make me feel? Is this a good relationship? Friendships? Is this a good one to have? Is this a relationship that'll help me grow? And am I helping that person grow? It changed everything, just making any decision. But let's see, that was at the start of my business. After that, how many years has it been? 3 years later. I think it was more of just moving forward, pushing through Imprinted Legacy, just moving with it. I started it with a blog, and that didn't feel quite right. I was feeling stuck, and Alicia asked me, she's like, well, do you feel free, ethereal, or serene about this? No. Then change it.
With that.
Yeah, then stop doing the blog. What do you want to do? I want to do a podcast. Then do that. I was struggling, little things like that, where I was struggling of, I don't like this part. Well, does it make you feel those three things? No. Well, what would? This? Easy decision. Then stop doing that. That's how it changed my approach to things. But what has helped was, I think through all of that, that's how I ended up coming to New Zealand. A scientist found me and wanted me to share their research article that was going to be published. I was completely excited about it because I did feel no one's hearing my message, no one's getting it, but I can't stop. I'm going to keep going anyway. And someone did. Someone found me all the way across the world. Someone found what I was trying to do. And so it's Clint Gray, Dr. Clint Gray, and he shared the research article with me. It was looking at how exposure to salt in utero can affect cardiovascular disease in men, males growing older. But sugar is actually the effect on females. So their exposure to fructose in the womb sets them up for cardiovascular disease later in life. So there's differences, sex-specific differences, which to me is fascinating. But I think, hey, that's good to know if we're looking at programs for pregnant women to help them know how to eat, help them to eat for the best health of their baby. That gives them a little more information than they had before. But through talking to him and pushing information out there, sharing it, he did ask me to be his student. And that's how I got here. And then being his student helps me to meet other scientists, collaborate with other research articles, and it makes me that much more knowledgeable. And I could do more now because of now I have a different angle and a different approach to this information that I could share. So that was a long journey, 4 years, but a lot of that did start with the Desire Map, knowing, is this decision right or not? And then thinking about coming out here to New Zealand. Gosh, I've only been out of the country once, and that was on my honeymoon. But I came here alone, because I had to start my program at a certain time. So I had to come here before my husband, and that was intense. But reminding myself, why are you making this choice? Is it worth these feelings of being scared and insecure? Are these feelings worth it? Because how you want to feel, what you want to do. And even while I'm crying, yes, the answer is always yes. So
Yeah, I remember like when you were sharing your story, or like the struggle, like how it was overwhelming and you had to have all these things done. I mean, to leave one country and go to another, especially for school, there's paperwork. Explain how you overcame that or got through the obstacle of that. Like, did you have support? How'd you talk to yourself? Like, how did you get through that?
Okay. So yeah, that was a struggle because I had to put Imprinted Legacy somewhat on pause, and I still have because I'm still adjusting. It's going on my 3rd month here. But I had to, how did I overcome it? It came down to knowing like this, everything's built up to, this is one other moment and one other milestone that you have been working towards. And that's the thing, it wasn't part of my plan. When I started Imprinted Legacy, it wasn't to become a student. It wasn't, I set out to spread this message because I thought it was the neatest thing. I was originally wanting to work one-on-one with people. And then everything kind of took its own path. And I'm very much type A personality. And I like to, I like to control the situation. And I've been having to learn to let go and just go with life, because that was one of the things, just to let things go. That's been really hard still, but I did have a great support, and my husband, just so amazing. I know he's my husband, but just because he's my husband doesn't mean he has to agree with this crazy journey. It doesn't mean he has to support me. You know what I mean? A lot of people might think, oh, he's your husband, that's his role. No, it's not. He's a person. He has his life goals too. He has things going for him, and to decide, yes, let's do this, and to see the vision with you and it be a shared vision, that's a big deal and something I don't ever take for granted. So having, again, the right type of relationships. So I'm very lucky that I have a good man. Friendships too. A lot of my friendships, like you, when I talked to you, it was just the support. But you met me at a time I was very vulnerable and was willing to share my vulnerability. So to be able to talk to people openly about, this is scary, it's exciting, but it's scary. And having to leave everyone I know, everything I know, go somewhere where I've only met Clint through Skype. And that was since 2015 we met, but it was Skype. That's how that's the only way I've known him. It's not like we hung out. I met my other supervisors twice before I left. So it was really just going at things on your own in a way. And I was one of those kids that couldn't stay the night at my grandparents' house once the sun went down because I'd get homesick. So I wasn't, it was really scary for me to just leave everybody and everything I knew. But what I did to overcome that was just remind myself that it's what I was setting out to do is so much bigger than me. So much bigger, that any of the sacrifices, any of the fear, the good that comes out of it is greater than myself. And if I don't do these things, then what else am I going to do with my life? And that was part of it. I knew my alternative life because I've been living my alternative life, right? Not being able to. Yeah, it was just, I know, it's like you trust the devil, kind of thing. And it's just, I knew what that was. I knew what that looked like. And that wasn't good enough for me. And I have, actually, one of my greatest fears that I have is regret. And that is this kind of choosing not to come here, not to get my PhD, not to struggle and be scared. I didn't want to regret the good that can come from it if I didn't just go anyway. And that's really what kept me moving forward. I did stall a little bit on some things because I was scared, where you kind of self-sabotage. I was debating over airline tickets between the cost of $7 from one to another, or like one flight is 30 minutes shorter than the other. That makes no difference when your travel time is more than 22 hours, or $7 difference in an airline ticket. But I was my husband was the one that pointed out to me. He's like, I think you're stalling because none of this matters. And he would tell me sometimes, because he would know my answer. He's like, you know, you can always say no. And then I'd come back like, no, I can't say no. He's like, then you have your answer. It's, you know, and that was helpful, having people like him or my friends that would just kind of remind me, like, you can always stop. Like, you can always stop and turn around. But it was a good check-in of, but I don't want to. But saying it out loud, I don't want to. Okay, then move forward, because you already know your alternative. You know, and those are the things that really pushed me through.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I think your story is phenomenal, because I do know you personally, and I do know the struggle you went through. I mean, I met with you right before when you were going through all of that. And I like how you mentioned how you were stalling, because I think a lot of us do that when there is something, like for my book, for instance, I know it's ready. It's like right there. It's just like giving birth. And it's almost like I'm trying to find things too, like, oh, there's something wrong with it. I don't know. I mean, yes, it does need to be polished. I actually just hired some local help to really help me get it completely where I want it. It's good, but it's not great. And I want great, you know, for my readers. So I really like how you mentioned, you know, just you got to do with no regrets. And I really loved what you said about you're already living the alternative. Oh, my mind blown. That's so true. And I guess I never thought about it like that. So thank you. That's very wise of you. So tell me about New Zealand. Like, now that you are there, like, how was the adjusting?
Sorry, I'm cracking up about how was the adjusting. I feel like I was Alice through the looking glass. Everything was different, right? Like, driving on the other side of the road, I'm hearing I'm the one with an accent. You know, like, no, I'm not used to that. Like the food is different. Even the avocados, you know what I mean? Like, that's something familiar, but that tastes different. You know, it's everything. It was familiar enough, but just enough that it threw me off. Being here alone, I am more of an introvert. I mean, I get along great with people, but I am more introverted, and I'm here alone, so I have to meet people. So I have to be more extroverted. Trusting people, you know, like, I just being able to be, okay, this person is safe. This person's, you know, looking out for me, and just completely different adjustment. But it's been great. Everybody here that I have met has been amazing. And that's the thing where, gosh, so I'll tell you when I got on the plane, and I might start getting teary-eyed because it's still fresh. I'm so sorry. But
I love this part of you. You're so like emotional, and it's great for those of us that are like me. I hide my emotions a lot. So when I'm around you and you're just like, here I go, it's just great. I love it. It's like you're crying for me. So go for it.
Crying for you. That's what I do. I have emotions for people. But it's like this was so big, but like pushing through all the feelings is really what's been going on. So saying goodbye to my husband at the airport was really hard. Sorry, I still cry about it, but knowing we didn't know when we were gonna see each other next. And we're still working on trying to figure that stuff out. But that's pretty hard too, like leaving the person that's been with you we just had our 6-year wedding anniversary yesterday. You know, so just thinking of, wow, you've been there through all the stuff. You know, we were together total 8 years, but I'm leaving my best friend, my person, and I don't know when I'm going to see you next. It's scary. So every single time I just had to think about, okay, I'm getting to Canada. That's the next step. Don't think about next week. Don't think about next month. Just think about the next step. What does that look like? I got to Canada. I was fine. I started tearing up a little bit, but it was the further I got from here, the more freaked out I got. I actually was starting to have an anxiety attack on the airplane. So talk about like, I share my like feelings in that moment. Like, it wasn't something, I didn't make, you know, a big ruckus about anything, but I was having a hard time breathing, and I was starting to freak out. And because I realized how far I was, how many more hours I had left, and I was over the ocean, you know, just talk about feeling vulnerable. Like, I know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. I'm over this ocean, this giant ocean. I still have 13 hours left on this thing. You know, it's just like, I can't turn around. I cannot turn around. So I had to keep reminding myself of what am I doing this for again? How is it all playing out? Got here, everyone was great. One of my supervisors, I lived with her and her boyfriend. So that helped because then I had people to kind of show me around. People to kind of just take me under their wing, help me understand the culture here. But even though I was never, and I haven't been alone, that's the thing. So many people just wanted to help me adjust. I remember my first day, well, my second day in the lab. So I landed on a Friday, met my other supervisor on a Saturday, so I have 3 supervisors. Clint is the one who brought me on, Dr. Clint Gray. Then I have Dr. Rebecca Dyson. We call her Beck. She's my other supervisor, and Dr. Max Berry. Clint wasn't here for my first month, so the only person I knew wasn't even around. So I arrived on a Friday, stayed with Beck Friday night, stayed with Max Saturday night, was in the lab Sunday, and have been in the lab since. I didn't adjust to jet lag. It was just boom. I got here, just took off, right? Just with the experience of it all. And my Monday, one of my colleagues, he instantly helped me find a place to live. So it was just, I was never alone. And even when I had to go buy a new jacket because I didn't have the right kind of jacket for here because it rains all the time, there was just always people there willing to help. But I still felt so alone, which is the weirdest thing. I was never actually alone, but I've never felt so lonely in my life. It was really tough. Recently, one of the closest people in my life, just a couple weeks ago, she passed away, one of my aunts, and she was my godmother, and I couldn't be there for any of that. So it was just, I realized more and more what I left and what, just that has been tough. So the adjusting of when you say yes to something, what you're really saying no to, and what that means. But every time I figured something out, I was really excited. So figuring out how to drive on the opposite side of the road in a car, driving, and those things would get so frustrating because driving is so natural. I've done that since I was in high school. It's not a big deal. But then I'm in a different country, driving on the other side. You're having to break old habits. Wow. I'd say the adjusting to everything was more breaking out of every comfort zone ever. And 20 feet outside of that comfort zone and doing it anyway. I remember I would feel like my body being on fight or flight mode for the first month where I felt very amped up and I couldn't sleep well, but that's the only way I can think of. Everything I had to do, I was shaky about every single time, but I would do it anyway. And I think that's one of the bigger things that I think that got me through it all was, doesn't matter how scared you are. If you really want it, you do it anyway. Even if you're crying like I would, I'd cry quite a bit at night. I'd cry. The first few times I would talk to people on the phone, bawling, just the holy crap moment. Oh my gosh, this is happening. What am I doing here? What did I say yes to? Am I good enough to do any of this? That was a big thing too, thinking about that. Am I good enough to be here? Am I good enough to do this work? And it was, well, you're here, you're scared or not scared, do it anyway. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But again, going to the regret thing, the alternative. And I would remind myself those things when I was scared and shaky. The first week I was here, I had to turn in an abstract. I had to do a presentation just a few weeks later on my study, and I just arrived. It was just overwhelming. And I didn't just have to learn how to live in a new country. I had to learn stuff in the PhD program. So it was overwhelming too, where everything was new, inundated with just knew that even that got exhausting. But I think that's the thing that's anchored me down the most is even if it's a rough day, I know my alternative. I'm not going back to that. I'm not doing it. It's not acceptable. But it's good now. Things are feeling more natural. I feel more comfortable I feel a lot more comfortable and just safe in general. My nerves have finally calmed down, but whole comfort zone didn't exist for a while.
Yeah, that's a good point that you said earlier. Fight or fight. Is it flight or fight? Fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
It's such a tongue twister. The fight or flight. Do you fit? Because as you're telling me about it, it sounds like what really kept you focused, besides knowing your alternative, was the constant movement, the constant doing things. So it's almost like your body was in motion, your brain was in motion. So you really didn't have time to really think about the alternative until you came to those small silent moments or less busy moments where that's when the fear and the doubt crept in, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Spot on. You hit everything spot on, because it was in those moments when things calmed down that it was harder. But yeah, just the momentum, just keeping up with it, even if it's stumbling, even if you feel like you're falling on your face every single moment, just keep moving forward,
Yeah.
It's tough.
Because, my brother died 2 months ago, a little over 2.5 months ago. And so I'm sorry for the loss of your aunt, but, or godmother, but like, I can relate to that. Like just knowing that it's kind of like that fight and flight also. I just was like, okay, stay in motion, because time does heal everything. And I was very much thinking like that too, like thinking of the bigger goal and just knowing like the more you stay in motion, like it will come. So I really feel like a lot of faith played into it, like not like a church or religion thing, but more like faith for you really played into no, it's like you knew you were making the right decision, even though you know how much it hurt to leave everything behind. That was very brave of you, Erin.
Gosh, you're
very
so
brave
right.
of you.
But you're so right on the faith in yourself to be able to do it, because even in those moments of doubt, you have to be, we're our worst critics, but we have to be our best cheerleaders. We have to, we can't, I don't think it's fair to expect others to be our biggest cheerleaders. As great as my husband is, I still have to be a bigger cheerleader for myself than him. I still have to be a bigger cheerleader for myself than you are for me or anyone else, because at the end of the day, it's our life, right? We're the ones making that choice to do or not do it, to live how we want to live. It's no one else's fault. If we decide not to do something or to do something, it's no one else's fault. That's too much responsibility to put on someone else, to have that much power over your own life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but having faith in yourself to just go through it. I remember when your brother had passed too, and my heart went out to you as well, because it's tough, but just moving forward, knowing that time will move on, and our loved ones want that from us, right? To just don't stop, do something, leave your legacy behind, leave good in the world, leave the world better than the way you found it, right? In whatever way that is. How can you go? But knowing it's worth all this fear, it's worth all the struggle when you know it's for something good and why you're doing it. And I think that's the other thing, understanding your reason for it. If you have a big enough reason why, that'll counteract any of the doubt that you usually give yourself. Is this worth it? Yes or no, and why? Always coming back to that. That usually helps me a lot, thinking of that.
I love it. I love hearing about the growth in you. I mean, I can already tell you've grown so much. So my question is, what is your favorite thing about New Zealand so far?
Oh, so far. You know what? I've really been loving the birds. I hear them constantly. Not that I grew up in the country in New Mexico, so I'd hear the birds, but they are vocal out here, and I love it. And I think because even when my husband and I lived in Colorado, there was a bird's nest right under my window. I would hear them in the mornings. I love birds, but I hear them after it rains, and I hear them like early in the morning at 5 a.m. And there's something about, for whatever reason, when I hear them singing, it's it'll be a good day because the birds are singing. It's got to be a good day.
Kind of
You know, so.
reminds me of like Cinderella, Cinderella. I don't know that. That's
Yeah.
what, when I hear birds chirping, Cinderella comes back to mind.
Yeah, that's true. I love that cartoon. But I'm loving hearing all the birds. I love the accents here, like, because I get a mix of Australian, New Zealand, British. It's fun to hear all of that, and it's funny when I mishear something. It's actually really amusing. I'm gonna tell you a really funny story with my miscommunication of what the heck did you say? I was asking some colleagues of mine where to find maybe a used Xbox or TV, something for my new flat. And someone told me, I said, oh, why don't you just go to, it sounded to me like they said, go to the porn shop. And I was like, well, of course you try to send me there. And in my head, I'm like, no, my husband's not here, but geez, the look on their face when they said, like, yeah, I looked at them like, go where? And then one of my colleagues was like, oh, pawn shop. And then I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, oh, I thought you said a porn shop, not a pawn shop. So I have moments of like, excuse me, what did you just say? Their eyes sound like E's. So I'll just let you go with it on how many words will sound very confusing. And so that's been amusing to me, just like the innocence of my like, oh, thank goodness I misunderstood. There's that. I do love seeing the ocean every day. There's times where there's a lot I can do, you know, Lord of the Rings tours, whatever. But my favorite thing to do is just find a Bay Area and just stare at the ocean, just stare at the scenery. Because again, growing up in New Mexico, then moving to then Colorado, then Arizona, I've seen flat, dry lands, desert, I've seen mountains, but the ocean, to be around that and see it, that I think is, it's weird to me. Like my brain is just like, oh my gosh, this thing is huge. And it's beautiful. And every Bay Area looks different. You can find different seashells there. And there's just something really calming when I'm feeling a bit anxious and I'm hearing the ocean, like the waves just break, you know, on the shorelines. I don't know, it's just really calming to me. Those have been my favorite things. Just the little stuff, like nothing major, nothing big, but it's enough that, I don't know, it just makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing it and it's okay. So.
Well, I am so thankful that you made some time, because I know our time is completely opposite. Like so what day and time is it right now where you're at?
Right now it's Friday, November 3rd, 12:51 p.m.
Okay, it's Thursday, 4:51 p.m. here in Arizona. Wow, what a difference.
I know. It is weird when I think about like the time. My nephew was laughing at me because when I was talking to him about it, he was asking me about my day, and he's 10. And he was telling me, he's like, oh, you're in the future. I was like, yeah, I'm like in a whole other time warp right now. I am in the future. It's just kind of funny, like, to think about that.
So have you been able to reach back to anybody here in Arizona, or your family, or, you know, just, or you haven't seen your husband, but like, have you been able to Skype and do everything kind of easily, or call them, or? Yeah,
you know what's been the best thing ever is WhatsApp. I love whoever created that. I would give them a hug and possibly a big kiss on the cheek, because, you know, I think about if I was in a different era, you know, could be letters, and I'm only hearing about things through letters and waiting months to get letters, you know, like and phone calls. Like I don't have to worry about long distance anything because I have the app. But that's how I've been able to keep in touch with people. I've been able to do video calls, and it was one of my nephew's birthday today. So I was doing a FaceTime with WhatsApp with him right before I got on with you. So it was so cool because even though there's things I miss out on, I'm not totally disconnected and totally out of it. You know, you or Alicia, I've been able to keep in touch with her. And when my aunt passed away, I was able to be there for my cousin, you know, chatted for 3 hours, you know, so I don't feel as disconnected because of that. It is hard though. If I'm having a really tough day, it's hard because I kind of have to deal with it on my own before I can call somebody, because it could be 2 a.m., 3 a.m. on my family's time. And that's usually a time when you call and something's wrong, you know? So I don't want to scare anybody. Why is Erin calling at 2 a.m.? Because we can't get to her. But yeah, so I've been able to do that. You know, social media wasn't my thing. I only did it for Imprinted Legacy before. But now, like, that's how I know how my friends are doing, or people I went to high school with, and I've actually connected a bit more with people that, not that you take granted, in a way, like you take it for granted how close proximity you are to people when you're there. And then when you're far away and you feel alone, then you realize, like, huh, yeah, that meant more to me than I was actually acting upon, you know? So, but I'm very glad I used to not like social media, but now I'm actually very thankful for it personally. You know, before with Imprinted Legacy, okay, I'll do it for that, but I wouldn't do it for myself. But now that's how I keep up with what you're doing and what's going on. And mostly, you know, or if it's late at night and I miss people, like, that's how I like, hey, they're doing all right. They're doing good. Yeah. So I can move on. I'm doing good. They're doing good. Everyone's safe and happy.
Well, Erin, we're going to have to wrap this up. I'm so bummed because I love talking with you, and the lighting is so weird over here. It's because the sun is going down. I'm a little bit more orange, but I know I'm beautiful, pretty orange with purple cuffs. So I want to leave everybody with a message, and I really like how your journey was. It was huge, a huge journey, a huge leap of faith. So if there's somebody out there going through something very similar to that, you know, self-doubt or just anxiety, or, you know, they have a huge decision, life-changing decision to make, scared shitless. I mean, they're at the point where they're almost ready to take the alternative. What would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
My biggest piece of advice would be, don't be the thing that stands in your own way.
I like that.
That's what it would be.
Damn, that's good.
Because, like, thinking about it, at any point, I could have been the one to say no and to have stopped. You know, I got on the plane, you know, or not gotten on the plane. At every moment, it came down to me and my decision. So don't be the one to stand in your own way. And don't let it, which means, like, not to let anything else stand in your way either. But we tend to be the biggest obstacle, not the obstacles that are really what we're seeing. We're usually those ones that gets in our own way. So that would be my piece of advice.
Damn it, you were so right. Because I get in my way all the time, and I know it too. I swear, like, sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, I am so exhausted, like right before I get to work. And I'm like, why am I so exhausted? I just got here. Why? Because I spent the whole hour on my drive to work fighting with myself. Fighting with myself to not call in.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. I definitely want to do this again. I want to see where you're at, how your journey unfolds. You are now in the university. What's your title? Again.
I am a PhD student, so that's my title. So still the founder of Imprinted Legacy. That's not going away. It's just, you know, have to move things at its pace. So founder of Imprinted Legacy and PhD student at the University of Otago. One day it'll be Dr. Erin Smith.
That is so exciting. I'm so excited for you, and I can't tell you, like, this is incredible. Like, it's incredible. So again, thank you so much for sharing your journey, and I really look forward to learning more in the future and miss you.
I miss you too, but yes, we'll definitely do this again. Anything for you.
Thanks for everybody for joining me and Erin today. And if you like what you saw, leave comments, subscribe, share with your friends, and see you next time. Thanks.